So I had an interview last month with Dr. Betz Laffer via Zoom, and I have to say that was one of the most uplifting insightful interviews I've ever done in my journalism career, and your perspective, especially about how government putting tax in a lot of things, really stayed with me, sir. So since now face-to-face, I'm curious, how does it feel to be here in Indonesia amidst all this global economic shift? And probably just to stay on a lighter notes, just to start with a lighter notes, what's one thing about Indonesia or this region that has pleasantly surprised you so far?
Well, let me just say how pleased I am to be here with CNBC. To be really honest, I love CNBC. I love Indonesia. I came here the first time I came here. I was just amazed at the youth, the energy, the entrepreneurial ambition of the people of Indonesia. It's just, if you come from staid Europe, you go to Europe, and I don't have any dislike for Europe. I like Europe a lot. I think it's a wonderful place, but Indonesia's alive. Indonesia's waiting for the opportunity to create prosperity. If I were to bet on one country being prosperous over the next century, Indonesia has all of the all you need to do is get the right government policies in place and allow the people of Indonesia to create that prosperity. That is what thrills me. I have 6 children. I have 14 grandchildren. I have 4 great-grandchildren. And being with them is like being with Indonesians.
So all of the guests here in CNBC Economic Update came here, just want to ask you something. That this was probably the first question that I'm going to ask you straightforward. So how do you see and how do you assess the current states of the global economy currently, particularly after April, in the light of rising trade tensions and the tariff policies introduced by the United States? What do you believe is the underlying economic rationale behind all these policies?
Yeah, on the U.S. side is what you're asking. I've known Donald Trump for a long, long time. Not really well, but in the last few years, I've gotten to know him very well. Spent a lot of time with him. And you know, when you look at his first term, and I think the second term is going to be matched the same way as the first term. Now, remember, I'm just an economist. I'm not here as a forensic society. I'm not here for anything else. You know, I'm only economics. And my assessment of his first term is that he was the single best first-term president the United States has ever had. And I was worked with Reagan. This man, with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, energy independence, medical transparency, right to try, the rolling back of the Chevron decision. I could go on and on and on. This man's policies in the first term were the single best policies of any president ever in U.S. history on economics. And so far in this administration, he's off to a running start. I mean, he just doesn't stop. He just on and on. But I'm very hopeful that this will be a great second term. And by the way, in the first term, everyone hears him talk about tariffs, and I'm the tariff man, and 50% tariffs, 100%, 200% tariffs. If you look at what he did in his first term, not what he said, we had 5 major trade deals in his first term. The first one was the USMCA, Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. trade deal, which cut tariffs dramatically. We also had a deal done with Japan, which again lowered tariffs, didn't raise them, lowered tariffs, was freer trade. We did the same thing with Korea. The Korean deal was to lower tariffs. We did it with Brazil and Colombia. The 5 trade deals he did in his first term always lowered tariffs. Make sure you look at what the man does, not so much. Well, you listen to what he says, but it can confuse you. It can get you all upset. He's a negotiator, and that's what he is, and he loves negotiation, and he's good at it. And I think right now you're seeing his expertise. 145% tariffs on China. Now it's 30%. Tomorrow it'll be who knows what. But I'm willing to bet you that at the end of his term, you will see much lower tariffs on all countries across the board, not higher tariffs. That's my belief.
Well, thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for that. Quite straightforward answers as well. So look at what he does, not what he said. And can you tell me more on that?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to treat Donald Trump seriously. You do, but not literally. I mean, I don't know how to describe the personality. He's not like other presidents who are very serious, have written speeches, or other presidents like Joe Biden who never appeared in the public, just without a speech written for him complete. Donald Trump is his own person. He sits there and talks with you. He has press conferences every day, all day long. You know, there's nothing that's hidden. There's no agenda that's hidden. So when you look at this man, think of this man as a friend of yours and sitting there in your living room talking and making jokes. And, you know, that's the way I would take Donald Trump. And I think if you look at what he actually does, it's amazing how much he gets done and how good his policies really are.
So what he done was just like to ensure and support there's a negotiation between each and every countries to make a great deal between everyone.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had a conversation with him in 2019. He called me and at home. And I was sitting in my chair. It was 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night or something. And he wanted to talk to me about international trade. Now, this was in the first term. And he told me, he said, you know, Arthur, I am a free trader. And if you know his job, he was head of Trump International. Every CEO of an international company is a free trader. All of them are. Yeah. They hate government. They hate tariffs, quotas, and he's no exception. I made a joke, which I probably shouldn't have made, but I said, of course I know you're a free trader because of your job. But I also said, I know you're a free trader because you imported 2 foreign wives. He didn't laugh. And he said, look, the U.S. today is the freest trade big country. We're, you know, the Isle of Man, maybe Jersey, Guernsey, and Sark, maybe Monaco are freer trade. But of the big countries, we are the freest trade big country. All of these other countries, and you can list them all in the OECD, have many more trade restrictions against American products than we do against their products. And he said, those trade barriers they have hurt their country as well as our country, and all of us in international economics know that. It doesn't matter who puts the trade barrier on, it hurts everyone. And he said they do that. The only thing they care about is the U.S., access to the U.S. market. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to threaten them with tariffs, of access to deny them access to the U.S. market, and bring them to the negotiation table to negotiate free trade deals with us. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get them there and negotiate the free trade deals. And, you know, I've got to tell you, he knows all the facts about trade. He knows what happened with the Smoot-Hawley tariff and how it crashed the economy, how it led to 26% unemployment, how it led to World War II. He knows those facts. He knows what Nixon did with the 10% import surcharge, with the restrictions on the job development credit on foreign capital. He knows all. He also knows the benefits that came from the Kennedy round tariff negotiation. We had the go-go 60s under Kennedy. He knows that NAFTA, done by Reagan and Clinton, worked beautifully, created great prosperity. He knows all those facts. But the difference with Donald Trump and every other president is he knows how to negotiate. And he wants to win this and get tariffs brought down, I believe. Now, we'll see. You know, just remember, I'm just one guy telling you what I believe to be true. And I think you will see this. I think he wants nothing but more prosperity for the world. I think a lot of the negotiations he's doing right now is to end war. I think he would love to end the Ukraine-Russian war, just armistice today. I think he'd love to get the Middle East problem solved. I think he'd love to make sure that China does not go into Taiwan. You know, he has lots of agenda items other than economics, and I think you're going to see him be very, very astute at dealing with trade and dealing with the trade negotiations of peace through strength, just the way Ronald Reagan did it. It's my view.
Right. Seeing all these dynamics, how can countries like Indonesia, particularly, sir, leverage this moment to strengthen our competitiveness and drive sustainable economic growth?
You know, again, I'm going to go back. Take Donald Trump seriously, but not literally.
Yeah.
So when Donald Trump does some of this stuff that he does, threatens you with tariffs, the wrong answer is to retaliate.
The wrong answer is to retaliate.
The wrong answer is to retaliate.
I'm
going to stop you. I'll fight you, Mr. Trump. Yeah, look, that's not a winning strategy. He's a negotiator. What can I do to make your life better, Mr. Trump, and America's life, and make our life better too? How can we further develop relations. And I think with Indonesia, he would love to do a free trade deal with Indonesia. I've never talked to him about it, okay? But I think he'd love to do that. And I think what you ought to do right away is say, I'm willing to sit down and talk with you and make it so that Indonesia gains, the U.S. gains, and we become partners, not competitors. We compete in the world market, true, but we have so much to offer Indonesia. And let me tell you, being here, you have a huge amount to offer America. It's a win-win for both countries, and I think that's the way to go.
So he wants countries to negotiate with the United States for a free trade.
Countries or regions. Mm-hmm. You know, I think he was willing to do it with countries. He's willing to do it with regions. I mean, obviously, there are probably, 176 countries in this world? Mm-hmm. The president can't spend 6 weeks on each country, obviously. So they're going to want to do trade deals across the board. But, you know, I think with Indonesia, you're a perfect partner with the United States. And I can't imagine any friend we could have that would be a better friend than Indonesia, to be honest with you. I look at you and your country and your people, and I just smile. I mean, you're just so exciting to seeing the future. You have this wonderful future in front of you. And, you know, I want to share the journey with you. I'm 85, and if you guys do things right, I'll have to live to 137 to make sure I get to see it all. So I guarantee you I'm going to live for another 50 years. Just
50 years.
50 years more.
Thank you, sir. So just about this dynamics, and then I just would want you to know that the Indonesian government has an ambitious target of 8% economic growth by 2028, 2021, something that you have mentioned before in your speech. So in your opinion, what concrete steps should be taken to attract long-term investment, fostering a thriving business environment? What do you think other countries are prospering, and what do you think some of the reason why other countries are not? We want to be a country that prospers in our growth.
Yes, you do. There's nothing more fun than getting rich. It's really fun. It's much better than getting poor. You know, the dream in this world has always been to make the poor richer, not the rich poorer. You want the poor to join the ranks of prosperous. You don't want to pull down the top. You don't do that. And when I look at your government and your things, I can't. I mean, I'm not capable and I'm not qualified to talk about specific policies of your government. But the principles are the key here. You need to have a low-rate, broad-based, flat tax so you don't discriminate against successful people. You need to have that. It's really, really important. A low-rate, broad-based, flat tax that does not discriminate in favor of one group or against one group. It's neutral. It's there exclusively to raise revenues, to fund government programs that need to be funded. You need to do that. You need government spending restraint. The government should not be in businesses that the private sector does better. And, you know, when you look at the incentives of government employees, and again, I'm not talking about Indonesia, but I think it would apply, is that politicians are spending other people's money. They don't live or die by the profits or losses. They can't get fired. You know, they do not bear the consequences of their own actions. They don't. Yeah. So therefore, you need spending restraint and restrictions on them. Let the private sector do all that it can and have the government only in those areas where you actually need government regulations, money, trade. All of it follows the same rule. Low rate, broad-based, flat tax, spending restraint, sound money, minimal regulations, free trade, and then get the heck out of the way and let the private sector. You have the best private sector in the world. Let them achieve what their dreams can be.
So that was the principle, but do you think it can be applied to every country?
Oh, every country. And it applies to you especially because you have all of these people in your country that are dreaming about being prosperous, that are dreaming about a better life. I think your real GDP is, what, $5,000, you know, something like that, about that, way below ours. Look at the stars that you can go to. Imagine the prosperity and the dreams that you can fulfill. I mean, Bobby Kennedy, senior, not the junior, but senior.
Bobby Senior.
President.
Robert.
Robert, he ran for president there. He said, I look at the world and I see problems and I ask, why? And I look at what could be done and I ask, why not? You know, here it is. Get the government out of some of these areas and let the private sector spread. You know, no bird flies too high if it flies with its own wings. Let the people of Indonesia fly. Let them let them make the mistakes. Let people make profits. Let them have losses. You know, the government is not here to stop people from losing money. It's not here to redirect the incomes of all the people. You can't do that. The government here is to have a fair representation to all these policies so that the people of Indonesia can take the risks, can do it. You want to invest. You know, you can't have a profit without a loss. And you have the competition there. The government's not here to prohibit people from losing money. That's going to happen. But allow them to make the money too. And allow them to have the incentives to create prosperity.
As a student of economics, I learned about your curve, Laffer curve, sir. So it's a full circle moment that I'll interview you in person.
Yes.
So can you tell me a story? Can you tell us the whole room a story about this Laffer curve? And then if I read somewhere, I don't know from what sources, I forgot, but you have this inspirations of Laffer curve from the economic theory of Keynes and Ibn Khaldun. Yeah. I just want to hear your story about this.
Let me tell you, I did not invent the Laffer curve, and I didn't name it. Okay.
Why does it name Laffer curve?
No, but it was named by a reporter from the Wall Street Journal who named it the Laffer curve, and you know. Now, the truth of the matter is, at the time, which is in the late 60s and 70s, there was the view in macroeconomics, now not in price theory, that if you raise tax rates by 10%, you would increase revenues by 10%. Okay. And the truth of the matter is that's not true. If you raise tax rates by 10%, you may raise revenues by 9%, by 8%, by 6%. You may even lose revenues. But you'll never get 10% more revenues. People, when you tax an activity, they'll hire lawyers, they'll hire accountants, they'll hire deferred income specialists, they'll hire politicians to try to get new rules to get around it. They'll stop working as much, they'll leave the country. There are all sorts of incentives there, you know, and you'll never get the 10% more revenues. Now, that was not what was in macroeconomics at the time, and I remember it was sitting down with my classmate, Dick Cheney, who was my classmate at Yale, and a good friend, and Don Rumsfeld, who was also a good friend there. We were sitting there in the W Hotel, and Jerry Ford had this silly, silly policy called Whip Inflation Now, which was a 5% tax surcharge. It's the worst thing you can do, and I did the little curve, and it's history now. But you all know that. When you raise tax rates, you do collect, you know, let's say you raise tax rates by 7%. You do collect 7% more revenue per dollar of tax base. But when you raise tax rates, you reduce that tax base. There'll be tax sheltering, there'll be lower incomes, there'll be all of this. And these two effects, the economic effect and the accounting effect, always work in the opposite direction. Sometimes when you raise tax rates, you do get more revenues. And sometimes when you raise tax rates, you get less revenues. And, you know, it's data-driven. Yeah. And these politicians were not data-driven. And Jerry Ford's policy was a mistake and was really wrong and caused a lot of damage.
After the establishment of Laffer curve, and then probably you advised presidents, the United States presidents, about this fact that if you increase taxes, you're not going to get as much as the revenue you have for the states. Is there any real case for some states in the United States that has worked really well because the implementations of the Laffer curve?
Yeah. Now, I'm a specialist on the states in the United States, and just for the record here, just all of you, there are 50 states in the United States. We all speak the same language. We all have the same central government. We all have the same monetary dollar. We all have freedom to move anywhere we want as long as we're willing to live by the rules where we move to. There are not allowed to be any barriers to movement of goods and services across any political boundary. So it's a perfect free state. We have 9 states in the U.S. that have no income tax. We have 41 states that have guess what the 9 fastest growing states in the United States are? Those states without an income tax. We have 11 states that have introduced an income tax since 1960. Guess the 11 worst performing states in the United States are those states that introduced the income tax. If you ask yourself, what are the best states? You look at Nevada, you look at Texas, you look at Tennessee, you look at Florida, you look at South Dakota, you look at New Hampshire, you look at all of these, Washington State, Alaska. These are the fastest growing states, the best prosper. Why did I move from Southern California to Nashville, Tennessee? Guess which is the lowest tax state in the nation? Tennessee. If I don't move there, who does? You know, economics is perfect. When you my latest book on taxes have consequences. When you look at tax consequences, we have an income tax that was started in 1913. We have every tax return. My book, and I did it with Dr. Gene Sinkfield and Dr. Brian Dimitrovic, are my co-authors on this book, really great people. I looked at every single tax return from 1913 to the present. We know what happened. When someone says, well, what's your opinion? I say, I don't give a darn about your opinion. I could care less what your opinion is. This is about facts, not how you feel. Every single time we've raised tax rates on the top 1% of income earners in the United States, 3 things have happened. 1, the economy has underperformed. Number 2, tax revenues from the rich have gone down. And number 3, the poor have been hammered. Every single time in our history that we've lowered tax rates on the top 1% of income earners, the economy has outperformed, tax revenues from the top 1% have gone up, and the poor have prospered in the economy. Just look at it. What happened in the 1930s to the poor? What happened during World War II to the poor? What happened during Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and Carter to the poor? What happened to tax revenue? You know, these are facts, people. Economics should be all about facts and nothing but facts. If you try to tax the rich, they know how to get around it. And they will, and you'll suffer enormously. Low rate, broad-based, flat tax. Treat everyone equally. The rich are not the enemies of the poor. They are not. Let me just give you one quote from John F. Kennedy, my favorite president, well, next to Reagan and Trump, okay, next. John F. Kennedy put it so beautifully. He said that no American is ever made better off by pulling a fellow American down. And we're all made better off if any one of us is made better off. Now, the next line, which we used with Trump, we used with Reagan, was used there, a rising tide raises all boats. And that's true of economics. We're all in this country together. Men, women, old, young, black, white, male. I mean, we're all in this country together. It's us. We're all better off if any one of us is better off. This is not a war of this group versus another group. That is bad economics. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they need to go to school and understand that this is not the rich versus the poor. This is all of us together. How do we all become rich? How do we all prevent war? How do we all prosper? By being partners, not enemies. You know what I'm saying. And yet so many economists, and especially those, my colleagues that I studied with, by the way, and just for the record, as I said to you, I went to school with all these Eastern economists. I got better grades than they did. Just joking. I'm not joking. But these people want to make class warfare. It's not a class warfare. This is, we're all together in this tub. And just remember, every Indonesian is a partner with every other Indonesian. You all want to prosper together.
Well, thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for Dr. Arthur Laffer and a wonderful opinion on it. Dan kami juga ingin mengucapkan selamat datang terlebih dahulu. Kita ingin mengucapkan selamat datang ke Ballroom Hotel Borobudur dalam rangkaian acara CNBC Economic Update 2025. Selamat datang kepada Menteri Keuangan Republik Indonesia, Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati. Kita berikan tepuk tangan. It's okay. Ibu Ani, selamat datang Ibu. Terima kasih banyak telah bergabung di CNBC Indonesia Economic Update. We actually have Dr. Arthur Lever here on stage, and he said he want to shake hands with you. He want to shake some hands with you. Just give you a proper welcome, Ibu Ani. Let's give a round of applause, Ibu Sri Mulyani Wander dan juga Dr. Arthur Lever. And Ibu Sri Mulyani want to hear some advices from you as well. So we have Ibu Sri Mulyani here in the room where Ibu kita lagi ngobrol, Bu, sama Dr. Arthur Lever mengenai taxation, something that probably Ibu juga pelajari ketika menjadi student of economics. Tadi kita juga nanya, Bu, ke Dr. Arthur, Lever curve tuh gimana ceritanya gitu loh tentang perpajakan gitu ya, Bu. Jadi kita kebetulan ingin melanjutkan kembali pembicaraannya Bu Ani. Dan probably because we have our finance minister here, sir, do you have any notes or any takes on advices for the government of Indonesia, how we can ensure a robust fiscal policy to secure a stable revenue basis for propelling Indonesia ahead without giving much increase to the tax, as you mentioned before, sir?
Yeah, just for the record again, I am not an expert on Indonesia specifically. I love Indonesia, and I've been visiting Indonesia and I adore it. What I hope I can offer is an experiential base of a very old man who's a professor, an economist that's been in government for many, many years in many different countries. I was just down with Malay in Argentina, spending a week with him, with Bukele in El Salvador. I was in Suriname. I was over in Incheon. British. I've worked with Chile, Argentina. I have a lot of experience in all this. Not specific recommendations for Indonesia. I don't. But the principles, and if there's any advice or anything my experience can do that would give you a better chance at becoming prosperous, I'm here to serve you and to provide you with information that I have to help you make better decisions. And the principles I outlined, the 5 grand kingdoms of macroeconomics, a low-rate, broad-based flat tax. Just do not use the tax code to favor one group or against another group. Just a low-rate, broad-based flat tax. Spending restraint. You know, the government has all sorts of activities it is supposed to do, and it needs to do those activities as well as it can, but anything else, don't do it. You need to create a sound currency, stable prices. That's really important for prosperity. You need to have minimal regulations. You know, the government should not be in every business. That's for people to do in. The government should release the energy and entrepreneurship of the people of the country. And lastly, free trade. Free trade is critical to prosperity. Partnering with the rest of the world on trade, it's just really important. And then once you've done those, low rate, broad-based, flat tax, spending restraint, sound money, minimal regulations, free trade, then get out of the business and let the economy solve itself. The government cannot correct every mistake. And just because there's a private market failure does not mean there's a government answer. It doesn't mean that. You know, let people make mistakes. That's how they learn. If you make a business and you don't do well and you lose money, that's your problem. If you make a business and you make a successful business and you make a lot of profits, that's your benefit. It's nothing to do with the government. And, you know, here you've got to release the entrepreneurship, the spirit, the individuality of all of you Indonesians. You're just amazing. And what needs to be done is to release the entrepreneurship, the drive, the energy, the spirit, the knowledge, the joy that is Indonesia. That's what government, and to make sure that there's no crookedness in the dealings.
No crookedness.
Yeah, monopolies, other things where one group tries to take advantage of another group unfairly. There are rules, there are regulations. You can't allow that to happen. Free trade, but of course, you don't sell nuclear weapons to Kim Jong-un, please. You know, there's limits. But that is a very limited area for government to operate, and just allow the market to do its job. And you too will become as prosperous as the United States.
Now, what do you think about tax compliance, sir? Anything that you want to say about tax
If you
compliance,
have a
especially like
low-rate,
markets?
broad-based flat tax, if you have that, rich people know they're supposed to pay taxes. Poor people know that they should pay taxes. It's everyone's government. The thing is that rich people, when they pay taxes, want those taxes to be fair. And they're perfectly willing to pay taxes if those taxes are fair. If I make 10 times as much as you, I should pay 10 times as much in taxes, not 50 times as much. That's not right. And so once you make it one group versus another group, the rich people will hire lawyers, they'll hire accountants, they'll hire deferred income specialists, they'll hire government officials, they'll hire favor grabbers, they'll do all of this stuff to try to get around the taxes. They'll leave the country. That's not to the benefit here. In Britain, I was very involved in Britain and have always been, when Gordon Brown raised the top tax rate in Britain from 40p to 50p, 40% to 50%, what happened? The economy went right into the doldrums. Tax revenues went down. The unemployment rate went up. It was a catastrophe. In the exchequer there, they had the Laffer section. In 2011 exchequer, the Laffer section was showed in detail how the rich people got around those taxes, left the country in shambles. Then you had the next prime minister came in, and of course he dropped it from 50p to 45p. Why he didn't go back down to 40p like Margaret Thatcher had done it, like Tony Blair had done it, but they didn't. You know, get out of the way of the private sector. Let them do it. There's nothing wrong with being rich. There's something very wrong with being poor. The dream in this world is to make the poor rich, not to make the rich poor. It's to build up the bottom. You know, you've got to do that. These people like Saez and Piketty and all of these anti-rich people, the 1%ers, they're just plain wrong. The dream is to make everyone richer, not to make everyone poor. And I have to tell you, these other economists are just plain wrong. And, you know, it's not the poor versus the rich. Income inequality, when everyone is poor, there is no income inequality. When one person makes more money, then it becomes income inequality. We want to make everyone rich. The dream is always to balance up, not down. Well, you know I'm right. You know this, and you know most economists.
As you mentioned before, the rising tide
raises all boats.
Raises all
and
boats.
If you look at most economists, and you know them just as well, you studied in the U.S., you got your PhD in the U.S., and in the same state I was teaching at the University of Chicago. I went through all the ranks at the University of Chicago. And if you look at these economists, jealousy is not a good policy. Hate is not a good policy. We love each other, not hate each other, and we're not jealous of each other. We're proud to be associated with people who do well. And the dream is always to do well.
Let's give a round of applause and appreciation to Dr. Arthur Laffer. We have open-ended questions from the audience, sir. We would like to have one audience in the ballroom to ask just one question because of the limited time. So I would just gladly ask anyone who would give some questions to Dr. Arthur Laffer. One question about anything, economics, taxations, the presidents of the United States probably. Or probably how is the Tennessee weather currently? Because I love Tennessee. I went there, sir. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful state.
Work is a lot more fun with low taxes.
Probably Ibu Sri Mulyani has something to say about it. Ibu Ani, you want to ask something to Dr. Arthur Laffer, sir? Ibu. Okay, yeah. Ibu said, yeah, okay. And probably, do you have anything, any audience, one question to Dr. Arthur Laffer, probably one a lifetime opportunity since we have him here. Silakan, teman-teman riset CNBC. Silakan, ada yang ingin bertanya? Teman-teman riset? Oke, ada satu orang yang ingin bertanya, silakan. Bisa dibantu untuk pemberian mic-nya, pertanyaan langsung, nama instansi dan juga pertanyaan yang ditujukan kepada Dr. Art. Silakan. Boleh tunjuk tangan lagi? Sudah? Sudah ada yang di kiri ya, yang di kanan depan saya. Oke, sudah diberikan mic-nya ya, silakan Mbak.
Good morning, sir. My name is Dova from Bloomberg Technos. Would like to ask, have you ever heard any updates from the negotiation between Indonesia and United States of America regarding tariff negotiation? How was the update so far from President Trump? And could you please elaborate more about the update so far? Thank you.
Yeah, I have not kept track of the negotiations with Indonesia and Trump and Ludnick or any of the others there. I have not kept track deliberately. I get confused. I'm old. I drool at night. I have trouble sleeping. Just joking. I'm just joking with you. But I don't know what the negotiations are. But I do know there's a lot of very good, warm feelings in the administration, this administration, for Indonesia. I do know that. I told them I was going over here. They're very pleased. They enjoy that. They really want to do good trade deals with Indonesia and all sorts of other deals. It's not just trade. I just happen to be an economist. But there are lots of other areas where Indonesia and the United States can work closely together. And that would be the last question. Yeah. I had prepared for one question.
I got one question.
Well, go ahead.
Something that's quite not related about the retaliation, the trade negotiation between the United States, but because I have you right now here with us in person, sir, this is coming from me. So looking back on your long influential career in economic policy, sir, for more than 50 years, what is one core belief or lesson you wish more policymakers or leaders in any country would understand today? And if you were advising young economists or young policymakers or young leaders in Indonesia, what would you tell them about the real drivers of prosperity of a nation?
Yeah. When I went into economics, I come from a fairly prosperous, privileged family. And so I chose to go into economics because I loved what I saw as economics. It's like physics, it's like biology. It's just a miracle that all of this can be achieved by human beings. I went into it to worship economics, not to use it as a tool for my career. That's when and the one thing I would suggest to all politicians as well as people going into economics is sit back and drink in, just absorb the miracle of what this world has provided into prosperity, curing diseases, curing hunger. I mean, look at this. It is a miracle what economics, and understand that all of that economics comes from the people, not from the governments. The governments are the umpires that regulate this thing and make sure that the rules are followed. But it's something that's created by humanity that is so wonderful. That's its, be awestruck. Don't use economics as a tool, use economics as something to sit back and just a miracle of how humanity has developed over the thousands of years of human existence. It's just amazing what it's done. Now, the one question I thought I was going to have to answer, which I prepared for. No one asked, but let me, if I can. I have been, knowing I'm dealing with a business audience here, knowing all of the super exquisite credentialed people and their abilities and their successes, that I used my economics on the stock market because I knew I would get someone asking me a question about the stock market. So I applied supply-side economics to the New York Stock Exchange, to the NASDAQ, to all these other markets. I knew someone was going to ask me my picks, my stock picks. So I applied this, and let me just tell you, after studying it for 2 weeks, preparing to come here, I have found 7 stocks that I can guarantee you will triple in value in the next 6 weeks. I can guarantee. But no one asked.
So now you know. Now you know, but no one asked, so no answers from Dr. Arthur Laffer. Let's give a round of applause for Dr. Arthur Laffer. So, sir, just one more note. We truly deeply appreciate your time, your clarity, and your generosity in sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you, and we really hope to continue to learning many, many ways from you in many, many ways ahead. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.